This ancient shell used to flourish in the glacially carved tidal zones of our large estuarial region. These oysters thrived on our sandy shores and occasional gathering sites for Muncie Lenape in our northward watershed and their southern cousins, the Unami Lenape, gathered along these shores, eating these oysters, along with the extended family of Algonquian peoples. And over thousands of years of these shared meals, the great shell bins began to accumulate. And they formed really a heap that symbolized the shared memories of the unfolding annual gatherings of the original peoples of these lands. These oysters also gave witness to what the Afro-Caribbean British scholar Paul Gilroy, many of you know, had called the Black Atlantic. Ellen Gallagher's brilliant painting that we've used for this poster reveals a figure with a man with a peg leg, an eye patch, seaweed, and a massive egg sac hair halo. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome each and every one of you to the annual Marion Thompson Wright Lecture Series. Sorry we started a little late, but we had some technical issues that we fixed. This year, we're celebrating the thematic Black Futures, What Seems to Be Need Not Be. This year, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary. Now, I know some of you in this room who are my students have not even turned 20 yet, but I'm wondering, how many of you have been here for about 10 years, coming for about 10 years? Okay, wow, okay, and how many of you have been coming for 20 years? Ooh, okay, and 30 years? 30 years, okay. Amazing, 40 years, okay. Okay, I think those who have been here for 40 years will get you 4 free lattes in the back over there, okay, so yeah. This indeed is a reunion, not just the 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th reunions that we have in high schools, but in fact, 40 years of this esteemed civic ritual of coming together annually. What feels like the coldest day of many years, right? We're coming back in some ways like migrating birds, back to this special place to talk, listen, and get to know each other again. My name is Jack Tchen, director of the Clement A. Price Institute here at Rutgers University. It is my honor and privilege to be in the position once occupied by Clement A. Price. I want to take this moment to acknowledge his wonderful, beloved sister, Jamila Price. Jamila, would you mind standing up? She just came from Pasadena where, what is it, 80 degrees? Okay, well, not 80, okay. And to also recognize Mary Sue Sweeney Price, his wonderful, beloved partner of many decades. Mary Sue. Before we begin, I just want to remind you to please turn off your cell phones, okay? I can see a lot of people going for that. It is my first privilege this morning to invite someone whom I have come to respect for his great knowledge, his wisdom, and his humility, as someone I consider a brother. Chief of the Turtle Clan of the Ramapough Lenape Nation, Chief Vincent Mann has agreed to give us some morning blessings. He will open our reunion. Chief Mann, could you please welcome Chief Mann?
Kiha Kolomolsi, Ninjashinzi Kikai Man, Nunjiai Ramapough Sipu, Wak Ramapough Wanjikil. Anishi ki shalomokwen, elamiliang yonkwai kishkwik, wak kukana aki, wak tinda, wak umbi, wak ilongo matit, wak nimbu mausawakanam. Anishik, 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 Anishik. How are you guys? Good? My name is Chief Mann. I come from the Ramapough Lenape Nation. I'm the Turtle Clan chief from the Ramapough Mountains, the Ramapough River. I said, thank you, Creator, for giving us this day. We thank you for giving us our Mother Earth and the fire and the water and the trees. We thank you for all of our relations. But most importantly, we thank you for our lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to the four directions. I want to welcome everybody here, not just to the city of Newark, but also to the place of my ancestors, the Lenape, Munsee-speaking people. We are living proof of the resiliency of human beings that are aboriginal or indigenous to certain places around the world. And our connections to this land that is covered up by concrete and blocks and cement is still alive. And you know, we're not just still here, we are a part of it as much as this school, as much as all of the folks that are in this room or have memories of those who can't be here today. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me, Jack, to be able to be here today to offer up a blessing and a prayer. Mayor, it's good to see you. Again, thank you. Anishik.
Black Futures is the thematic title of this year's 40th MTW Lecture Series. Black Futures with the subtitle, What Seems to Be Need Not Be. That subtitle is from the visionary jazz composer, poet, performer Sun Ra. Somebody else's idea of things to come need not be the only way to vision the future. What seems to be need not be to build a world on. First, what seems to be need not be is a form of reconnecting with the way the deep past continues to live in this present moment. The present doesn't exist alone, but always in relationship to this present past. As we begin to learn how to reconnect with the land and the deep history of our estuarial region, our watershed, we necessarily have to remember, reconnect, re-put that back together what is so critically important for us to tell stories, different stories, that remember the oysters, for example, that also remember the corn, the squash, and beans, the three sisters, and potatoes, and peppers. And what would I and many of the world's cultures do without spicy hot peppers? The foods that we take for granted to this day, of course, were cultivated over thousands of years ago and traveled thousands of miles, right? Thousands of miles to this shoreline by the original peoples of the Americas, well before the Dutch and the British claimed these lands as their private property. Indeed, dispossession and enslavement were conjoined twins. I wanted to share these slides as a form of land acknowledgement. It's now being done more often, but it's oftentimes done without a deep understanding of what we're talking about. This is before 1609 when Henry Hudson came and arrived, and the river that we now know, of course, was named after him, but there were people for thousands of years before Henry Hudson arrived. and you begin to see the names that we're so familiar with today as really being linked to the Algonquian language that the Lenape people had used to describe places in the landscape that would be usable, and signals as a way to let people know what you could find in those places. This is the early moment, roughly 1680, of dispossession beginning to happen, of disease and violence pushing away the Lenape peoples in the region that we know so well. And this is a slide of the enslavement that began to take place in the very large plantations that began to supplant, right, the Lenape peoples. For example, the Elizabeth patent was 500,000 acres that was transferred and stolen, basically. So we see enslavement, as it's called a plantation, immediately after the land was taken, taking hold of the region and profoundly changing what had been in a way that is something that I think all of us really can agree has really been a historic, grave injustice to the region. That black sailor of the Black Atlantic had a life and daily reality intimately related to the Lenape families that pioneered fertilizing techniques and built the fish weirs. And those fish weirs, some of which are still in the Passaic River, are the oldest surviving structures made by humans in this region. And the stories of all subsequent migrants, my family included, are built on the wealth and power of the trading of pelts, adapting survival techniques, the taking of lands to form giant 500,000 acre plantations, and having enslaved peoples work without choice. So when we look at any one location in our region, this is the Passaic region, many of you recognize. In fact, Fran Bartowski was just telling us of this story about her father working in the Botany Worsted Mills. This island, which is just, many of you know this area where there's Dundee Island right there, of course, is the layering of immigrants working in these factories, but also literally on top of enslaved African Americans and also on top of what is perhaps the largest burial ground of the Lenape peoples in the region. Second, what seems to be need not be is haunting the future. The future is also always about how the present past haunts what is to come, the present future. That is, unless we can shake and reimagine and break with what appears to be inevitable. When I listen to the great Nina Simone's haunting version of Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, I sense the spirits and stories of the ways that should not have been. This is not about wasting time dwelling on the past. It's about an affirmation of a different life that we have to build still. All of you who listen to WBGO and who know Nina Simone and know Billie Holiday know the lyrics. Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the trees and blood at the roots, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. When I learned this classic anti-racist protest song was written by the Jewish New York City school teacher Abel Meeropol under the WASP pseudonym Lewis Allen, I realized this story is not so different from the histories we have grappled with in Manhattan's Chinatown, where I have done my work up until this point. From the founding factions of European colonialism, our stories are intertwined and intermingled, yet we ourselves too often, too easily disavow those interconnections. This is the genius of Black Futures and what's captured in Sun Ra's lyrics. Somebody else's idea of things to come need not be the only way to vision the future. What seems to be need not be to build a world on. Some quick announcements. Sadia Hartman, unfortunately, is not able to attend today, so she will not be able to share her brilliant insights with us. But nonetheless, part of the genius of MTW is that we have a bountiful group of speakers. So we have 3 fantastic speakers that you are going to be treated to. And it's also part of the genius of MTW to begin with the Negro National Anthem. And today we welcome the return of A-Larenee Davis to perform and to sing, and Sterling Overshown, the pianist, to perform the Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and they're also going to be performing Spiritual Ride. Thank you.
Lift every voice and
A-Larenee Davis, and Sterling Overshown. Thank you so much. Thank you. Rarely in life do stars and planets align. The reason I left NYU to come to this campus is the unusual alignment of great students, great faculty, and the leadership of this campus and this city. Ras Baraka is the 40th mayor of the city of Newark, a native of Newark whose family has lived in the city for more than 70 years. Mayor Baraka's progressive approach to governing has won him accolades from grassroots organizations to the White House. With a forward-thinking agenda that reduced crime to the lowest levels in 5 decades, addressed affordability while managing steady growth, lowered unemployment, and returned local control of schools after more than 2 decades. Baraka defied expectations during his first term in office. Mayor Baraka's futurist agenda includes the implementation of a groundbreaking partnership called HIRE, Buy, Live, Newark, a program that marks the first time that any U.S. city has sought to transform its economy by combining employment, procurement, and residential strategies. These types of initiatives caught the attention of Amazon, which named Newark as a finalist city and in its search to establish its second global headquarters. Could you please all join me in welcoming Mayor Ras Baraka.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to first protest that somebody made me speak after that song singing there. I think we all should go home after that. That was amazing. I just want to thank Chancellor Cantor for the work that she's doing still in this city, to continue the things that have been going on in this community for years. And it is always a pleasure to be here. Marion Thompson, Edelman, all of the things we say. The lecture series, 40 years is a long time. And to have this kind of public discourse about the identity of Black people is huge. Particularly in this time period, to still have this kind of discourse about our music, our sexuality, right? Our philosophical kind of ideas and concepts, where we are, where we want to be, is radical. It was radical in 1981, and it's still radical in 2020 to have these discussions in the middle of what we're seeing nationally in this country from the crazy person in DC. He is a little... My mother would caution me in calling him crazy because that's like giving him an excuse. He's actually not crazy, he's sane, and many of us are crazy because we continue to support him. That is, when we talk about Black future, I don't think that he's interested in making sure that there is a future for Black people, or for many people for that matter. When we started, we mentioned Sun Ra. And I had to, I was asleep when I came in here because I have a little baby. But when I heard Sun Ra, it kind of woke me up because I heard Sun Ra blaring out of the den in my house on the first floor from a radio station called WBGO that we're struggling to get the soul back of right now, right? Sun Ra wasn't just saying what seems to need to be talking about the future, he was talking about the present, right? But Sun Ra, if you saw Sun Ra, if you heard him, you definitely knew that he was in the future. He was certainly in the future. He was Octavia Butler future, right? He was in the future. When I was 15 and you listened to Sun Ra, I didn't know what was going on. That was way past Star Trek, Sun Ra. That was Star Trek with Lieutenant Uhuru as the captain of the ship. You know what I mean? So when I listen to that, you talk about the futurism of black folks, but he was really saying what was possible, that when you show the future, we have to be in it. Because we grow up and you watch these movies of the future, we not in it. It's like somebody had a deliberate premonition of the idea of black people would be disappeared by then. Sun Ra made it clear that not only are we here today, that we're gonna be here tomorrow. And this is what we may look like tomorrow, right? In that, I have to leave here and go speak to some young people. We have a leadership class. And the leadership class is designed so that the philosophy that we're talking about actually comes into fruition, that we are actually present in the future. That we have people who are actually alive and well and moving and thinking and pushing our ideas in the future. But in order for them to do that, they have to be a connection to the present and a real connection to the past. And I think all of those things have been severed. It's just, I think they've been severed. And this gives us the opportunity to string them all back together again, right? We're in this kind of mode now of the stay woke generation. We're staying woke in social media. And staying woke, to me, is just a state of consciousness, right? It doesn't mean that we're informed. It means that we are aware, right? We're woke. We can be awoke, but we also can be misinformed. We want to be awoke, but we want to be informed as well. We don't, because being awoke, is one thing, but knowing what's going on is something totally different. And so your wokeness has to be attached to something, has to be attached to a history of a people that have been struggling for a very, very, very long time, and be clear about that struggle and attach it to what's going on now and have a clear idea of what you want to see in the future, not what you just opposed to in the present, what you actually want to see tomorrow, right? What do you want to develop? What do you want to build tomorrow? And what you want to build tomorrow should be informed by your struggles in the present, but it also should be lifted up by the history of folks who got you to actually be where you are today. I am never, ever of the idea that I got here on my own. I'm not these people who quote their resume and say, I have all of these incredible things. This is why I'm here, because I know there was a time when people wouldn't even read my resume. And that there were folks that had to struggle without resumes to get me to a place where people will begin to read my resume, right? So I'm not of the illusion or the delusion that I got here on my own and that my presence by myself is going to fix everything that people 10 times more brilliant than I am have struggled with for centuries and decades, right? So the idea of our liberation didn't start in 2014 when I became the mayor, and it won't end when I leave me being the mayor. And there were brilliant people like Du Bois and Douglas and Henry Highland Garnett, folks that are 10 times more brilliant than I am, Sojourner Truth, who thought these things, who grappled with these ideas, who were more articulate, more studied, more learned than I am, who have not come to answers fully to what we're struggling with, means to me that all I have to do is grab the baton and run it as far as I can, run it until I'm out of breath, and I pass it to somebody else to carry it on. That is my definition of black future, making sure I pass the baton to some brilliant black baby who can carry what I'm doing today on 20, 30 years from now. God bless y'all.
Thank you, Mayor Baraka. That was fantastic. Shanna Harris serves as Vice President of Corporate Giving, where she oversees all cash for Prudential's Corporate Social Responsibility Program. Her responsibilities include management of staff, development of program strategy, and oversight of the distribution of over $50 million of grants and charitable contributions. Prior to joining Prudential in 2004, Harris was the director of the New Jersey Nets and Devils Foundation, the philanthropic arm of the New Jersey Nets professional basketball team and the New Jersey Devils professional hockey team. Before that, she was program director for communities and schools of Newark, where she was responsible for brokering community resources to key schools in the Newark Public Schools District. She serves as chairman of the Corporate Social Responsibility Council at the Conference Board. She's a member of the board of directors of Fort Jersey CAN, a statewide education advocacy organization, and is also chairman of the Newark Trust for Education, a local education fund. Shanna has a bachelor's degree in biology from Columbia and holds a master's degree in public administration from the New York University Wagner School of Public Service. But I should say, first and foremost, she has been a longtime friend of MTW and also a longtime friend of Clement Price himself. So Shanna Harris.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So thank you for that bio. Again, my name is Shanna Harris, and I am president of the Prudential Foundation. And on behalf of Prudential, we are so pleased to be a longtime supporter of this lecture series and so happy to celebrate the 40th anniversary this year with all of you. As a Newark native, I learned early about the beauty, resilience, and grit of the city of Newark and its residents. And I grew up knowing how special a place like Newark was and is, and how it is so much more than how others have defined it. But over the last 4 decades, the Price Institute in this lecture series has contributed to Newark's authentic narrative, reminding all of us that cities are shaped by the fabric of the people, their culture, and their engagement in the civic space. Clem Price deeply believed in this, which was reflected in his stewardship of the lecture series and can be found in the founding principles in which he established the Price Institute. The belief that arts and humanities, social justice, and civic duty can serve as drivers for Newark's revitalization. Clem mentored many, including myself, on what it means to serve as a civic leader in this city. He strongly believed in the power of people and knew the best way to ensure that Newark continued to thrive was through meaningful collaboration with individuals, community organizations, and the public and private sectors. Prudential's collaboration over the years with the Price Institute and the broader Newark Rutgers community has helped us to define what it means to serve as an anchor institution in the city. And it has also helped to shape our strategy and approach to driving inclusive economic growth, which is our singular driver in terms of our commitment to the city of Newark. So, congratulations to the Price Institute in celebrating this milestone, and special thanks to Jack and Salamisha for their leadership of this institute. We look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you again.
Thank you. To show how talented Shanna is that I introduced her as the vice president. She's already the president just from the time that, so excuse me for making the mistake. Now it is my honor to introduce Nancy Cantor. This is actually my first time in introducing the Chancellor. The Chancellor of Rutgers University at Newark, a diverse urban public research university, a distinguished leader in higher education. Nancy Cantor is recognized nationally and internationally as an advocate for leveraging diversity in all its dimensions, reemphasizing the public mission of colleges and universities as engines of discovery, innovation, and social mobility, and achieving the fulsome potential of universities as anchor institutions that collaborate with partners from sectors to help their communities. I'm going to not go through the whole, because there's many other things, but let me just say, at Rutgers University in Newark, she leads and promulgates efforts to leverage the university's many strengths, particularly its exceptional diversity tradition of high-impact research, and role as an anchor institution in this city through strategic investments in 5 broad areas, so this is important to say and to emphasize. 5 areas, with broad areas: educational pathways from pre-K through college, equitable growth through urban entrepreneurship and economic development, cultivating creative expression through the arts and culture, strong and healthy and safe neighborhoods, and science in the urban environment. Please join me in welcoming our Chancellor.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Chief Mann, Shanna, Salamisha, and of course our fearless leader, Mayor Baraka, who, by the way, just had to go because he's got the next generation of leaders waiting around the table. He's showing me this picture of Newark natives sitting there waiting to be inspired by their mayor, the next generation of kids. So Mayor Baraka said this year in a tribute to his father, and I quote, "He was a serious academic, but believed in active struggle. Unity and struggle," he would say, end quote. That commitment to study and to action and to doing it together is what we all admire about the set of Newark icons whose spirits guide us. Dear Clem, Giles Wright, that's what they were about when they started Marion Thompson Wright Lecture 40 years ago today. So let's clap again for 40 years ago. Wisely and very much, I believe, in the spirit of these icons, this year's lecture looks forward, boldly, not fearfully, imaginatively, not blinded to what has come before and landed us here, but yet with a searching eye, thrusting mind, heart, and body forward for more, for change, for determination, for strength, for a more just and inclusive future, as this year's program reads. What I love about embedding this MTW anniversary year's forward thrust in the spectacular vision of Afrofuturism, sci-fi, music, technology, science, is that it forces open in Technicolor for all to see both the persistent whitewashing, closing down, covering over of the ever-resistant power of African diasporan culture, history, legacy, and simultaneously freeze it with unstoppably bold light, sound, words, another virtual reality to be actualized based precisely on the strength of the very culture and its imaginative dreams that they tried so hard to wipe out, shut down, use, and yet never recognize. The future holds that culture, those traditions, which have always persisted and accumulated strength and richness of voice, bursting forth, breaking out, taking over, as we will see and hear and witness from our remarkable speakers today. I want to note here that the freedom dreams of Afrofuturism, imaginative and virtual and inspirational as they are, somewhat ironically but purposely force in their takeover a reckoning with the fundamental hypocrisy of our founding principles. Liberty for all? Easy to say when you build a nation on the backs of slavery. Equal protection under the law? Easy to say when for the last 40 years we've had so-called colorblind policies that have anything but a colorblind intention or effect. Resegregating schools, dismantling fair housing in the service of an architecture of segregation, leveraging mass incarceration to keep people in their place. E pluribus unum? Easy to say when the expectation is assimilation to a preordained unity faith, or else go home where you came from. The hypocrisy of this past 40 years, claiming to be colorblind, to fulfill the freedom dreams of Marion Thompson Wright, but never relinquishing control or taking down the walls to opportunity, have left us with a mighty task. As Khalil Muhammad writes, no racial barrier left to break, except all of them. And so we return to Black futures. What seems to be need not be. We do so at a time when the hypocrisy couldn't be more damaging and damning, yet also at a time when the demography works in our favor for real collective change. As someone who has worked for decades in higher education on resetting the table of diversity, I can finally look at those in search of the exceptional child, since they only expect a few to rise above adversity, and say that the exception is now the rule, if not the ruler. Look around. Look around. There is Black and Latinx and Native talent everywhere, where it always was, but now in numbers that you best not ignore. As Newark Public Schools superintendent and our dear Newark native and friend Roger Leone can tell you, in Newark, that talent is bursting into a generation of change makers. And we proudly learn from them at Rutgers Newark, where our homegrown students have increased by 100% over the last 6 years to 14.5% of our student body. Yay. And as the Newark City of Learning Collaborative documents, Newark residents 25 and older with post-secondary degrees are moving up from 17% ridiculous in 2015 to almost 22% now. Okay, it's slow, but it's moving in the right direction. So too are the number of Newark residents working in our various anchor institutions, as Shanna can attest, with the mayor's collective initiative Newark 2020 reaching our hiring goal early, before the end of 2020. And the number of local businesses getting procurement contracts with those same anchors. And while numbers aren't everything by any means, I do want to argue that the bold future imagined by the artists and writers and historians and culturists of this gathering, for that to take hold, sustainable, intergenerational, critical mass in all our institutions, universities, corporations, hospitals, cultural anchors, community-based organizations, government agencies, matters. Actually, it matters a lot. Critical mass, especially when it can be outspoken and spoken out, as in the visions of Afrofuturism, will turn the hypocrisy of colorblind identity sublimation on its head. No, Ben Carson, poverty is not a state of mind. The barriers of structural racism don't just crumble naturally in the face of individual hard work. And no, Silicon Valley, technology will not free people from their bodies and identities. It will free their bodies and identities to be seen in a network mass that has to be reckoned with as who they are, not as faceless, formless, colorless individuals. I look to critical mass in collectives within and across institutions and sectors, gaining access and using the tools of our techno-driven knowledge economy, infused with long-standing cultural legacies of humanity, to upend the orthodoxies of durable inequalities hidden under pieties of e pluribus unum and therein to shake things up from what they are to what they can be. And as much as the wonders of science and technology and the imaginative brilliance of Afrofuturism in the arts and fiction often have another worldliness to them, they are also inherently and inspirationally undergirded by people engaged with each other in place and space, right here, right now, as we look to this different future. I see the future differently when I listen to the collaborative university community lessons of our publicly engaged scholars, next generation students, and frontline community partners with whom they team. Artists like Salome Shatillett looking at war monuments in Military Park as a call to peace. Lawyers like David Trout helping to craft policies to protect Newarkers from displacement as we welcome capital investments in our city. Scientists like Asaki Roof digging for soil pollutants in our neighborhoods and creating safe community farms. Education scholars like Charles Payne engaging parents as literacy tutors in 13th Avenue School. And poets like Rigoberto Gonzalez teaming with jazz artists like Stefan Harris and the NJPAC team for jazz poetry in the stacks of local Newark public libraries. All of it is teamwork. All of it is place-based, ground up, but with that otherworldly vision in mind of equitable growth. A vision that our collaborators in the Newark Community Development Network have worked on for decades. Let's give them a big round of applause. Decades. One owned by, infused with the body, soul, and identity of Newark and Newarkers. So here's to a future that truly includes and represents, not one that holds back and colors over, one that feels real and dreamy all at once. Perhaps a slightly different rendering of climate change as climate justice. Finally, as we look to the future and listen to its dreams, I want to especially thank and acknowledge two amazing colleagues, Mark Krasovich and Laura Triano, who dreamed with Clem and kept his dreams very much alive, repeatedly in MTW and beyond. They will keep at it, you better believe it, in some new roles at the Honors Living Learning Community and Honors College, respectively, but of course will intertwine their work with the Price Institute always. Thanks to you both, big screen heroes and sheroes for sure. Thank you.